just give it a few seconds.
I'll make sure we're all on here. There we are. All right. Want to just shoot the breeze first, or just?
Start.
Okay.
So I'll have you introduce yourself to the camera and just kind of address the audience.
Howdy, Maricopa. My name is LaFond, and I'm running for City Council here in the city. I wanted to thank you guys for joining us today, and a special thank you to everyone from the nurses to the frontline shopping clerks for everything you've done during this pandemic. Keeping our economy going, keeping our people healthy, it's more than anyone could have ever planned for or expected. Sincerely, thank you. The community is continuing to keep on pushing forward, and please continue to support our small businesses. Appreciate it.
Well, how did you end up in Maricopa?
Well, so simple answer is I moved here into Arizona for my previous employment, and I met this very beautiful young woman on an online dating app, fell in love, moved in with her to this little town called Maricopa. I've never heard of it. On the dating profile, she had Maricopa. I thought she was talking about the county. And it was love at first sight with Maricopa as well as her. And after just a few months in this community, I knew I'd found home.
So, do you have a baby on the way?
I do.
Okay.
Little baby boy, Jack.
Yes. Someone had a question. Did you name the kid yet? So obviously you have Jack. We talked about that a little bit. So what do you think he will be? How do you think he will be shaped by Maricopa?
I grew up in a city of 200,000. You didn't know anyone outside of your block. Heck, you didn't know most people on your block. Maricopa may be 55,000 residents. It feels like a city of 12,000 people. It's tight-knit. I go to the grocery store and I run into city council members. I run into small business owners that I know personally because I've stopped and I've talked with them, and I shop in their stores every time I have a chance. You don't get that feeling in Chandler. You don't get that feeling in Gilbert. I love it. I want to see it continue, and I want that tight-knit community to be what my child remembers.
Well, what to you is the primary responsibility of a city council member?
Service. They stand in front to answer the calls and desires of our community, to help guide and shape, but they're not our leaders. They are responsible to and hired by the people. And I want to make sure that that continues if I'm elected.
Do you agree with the changes the city has made to mitigate the spread of COVID-19?
I really do. A lot of people are on the fence about COVID. One, it started coming out and the closures and the restrictions came in. A lot of people looked at it as overkill. My response has always been, if for a short time we just have to do what we always wish we could, take a vacation, sit back on the couch and relax, that's great. There have been a lot of people that have been hurt by it. A lot of people are unemployed. My wife has just recently been furloughed. So we understand, we're feeling it too. I work in real estate. I understand the slowdown. I understand the economic pain that a lot of people are going through. But we will get through that. We will recover. The economy will grow again. Jobs will come back. People will make it through, just like they made it through the Great Recession. But you can never get lives back. And a life is far more important than a job. The job will come back. The life is lost, and we need to remember that.
How have you been coping in your family and in your business?
So with my business, we are taking the extra steps of making sure to keep 6 feet away at a minimum. We have masks that we bought from a local seamstress here in town that we inserted. We went over to Ace, bought their highest grade AC air filter that is rated for virus particles, and we cut that in and slip that in to add an extra layer of protection. And I keep a spray bottle of isopropyl alcohol, bought at Ace. Just trying to plug a little small businesses here. But just trying to maintain the integrity of my business, because I do have to keep working, and people need to be able to buy a home, sell a home, and move forward with their lives. With that, we try to provide our clients the safest possible measures. We provide gloves, booties, instructions for any showings to make sure that they're safe. When clients need to be taken to go look at homes, same thing. We make sure that they have the cleaning supplies, everything they need to be healthy, be safe, and keep those people safe as well.
Exactly. Okay. Just some nitty gritty here.
Mm-hmm.
So Maricopa, generally, for most commuters, is one way in, one way out,
Yep.
as we know. So what should the city council be? How should they be accountable to the voters about any of that? Since a lot of it's not even in this county, let alone in the city. What should the city be doing?
I have no grievance on how the city has been handling it. 347 is a hydra. Every time you chop off a head on it, 2 more grow back in its place. With that said, the city really has been working quite well to be the middleman between a number of different agencies, the state, the county, Gila River, even Ak-Chin, Arizona Department of Motor Vehicle, ADOT, and all this is going on. All these people are butting heads, trying to figure out who has to pay the bill, who's responsible for what permissions need to be received, who's going to give those permissions to start the work. The city's made great standing in that, great progress. Are we going to get a second route in and out to be a major through to the 10? Maybe in a decade. That's not going to be around the corner. We can pursue that in the future, but 347 is our focus as a city. And again, the city really has been doing wonderful on it, and I want to continue that progress.
In answering one of our earlier questions for you, you said that you were concerned about Maricopa outgrowing its capacity. Could you kind of explain what you mean by that, and what could you do as a council member to fix the issue?
So Maricopa is growing by leaps and bounds, and it's phenomenal to see. And it's a tightrope on that because, like I explained in the beginning, I love the tight-knit closeness of this community, but I don't want to restrain or constrain the growth, because it offers jobs, it offers other people the opportunity to experience our culture here, our sense of one another, and it's phenomenal. With that, we do have infrastructure that we need to maintain and grow. We are a new city. We're very fortunate that most of our infrastructure is new, but it was built by a hodgepodge of developers working the fastest they could, and we all know the water main breaks. I'm not going to fault Global Water on that. I'm glad to see they're starting to take initiatives to put sealant into the pipes to secure older pipes or those that are at risk, and the city is working well to try to maintain. And as we grow, we need to ensure that what is being laid for new housing, what is being laid for new businesses, is the most up-to-date and fiscally responsible purchases and installments that we have. Now, city services. A big part, and really the first pillar of my campaign, is focusing on our emergency services. I spent a decade and a half working side by side with public law enforcement. That's local, that's county, that's state, that's federal, and many investigations and cases in my career. I love these people. I would have become a cop if I hadn't blown my knee out in the Army. I grew up next to the chief of police in my town. I want to make sure that they get what they need to take care of the city. Right now, they are doing a phenomenal job. They really are. We are one of the safest communities in Arizona. We are one of the safest communities anywhere in the country. And that huge thank you to both our fire and police. With that said, we are growing by leaps and bounds. And the last fiscal budget year saw about $200,000 in growth for the fire department and about $50,000 for the police department. The positions that were opened up for our officers, pardon, nose itch. The positions that were opened up for officers were to fulfill vacancies, not add additional bodies for the growth. We need to make sure that we're not going to put them beyond the stress limit where we start regressing. I just want to make sure that there's another voice on council ensuring that what they need is getting heard and moved forward.
So is your opinion there kind of based on what you experienced when you were volunteering with the fire department's supporting organization?
Yeah, sir.
Yes. Is that what fed your opinions there? You saw that?
Well, so I've actually had the privilege of sitting down with both the fire department, both their chief, and with their union members, and same with the police department. I sat down with Chief Soul and their union members and had honest discussions about what they're seeing and what they feel they need. And the focus of our conversations was always, all right, what's your grandiose wish list? What do you honestly expect is possible? And then what do you have or what are you receiving? And we broke it down and went through. And ultimately what I saw was people who were relatively honest with themselves on what was possible and what was necessary. Not a lot of pie in the sky dreams out of them. And I'm not faulting the city. We have a lot of growth going on. We have a lot of directions, but I don't feel that a net neutral budget growth in the last budget and relatively similar in the previous warrant the necessities for our growing community. I'd like to see another SRO officer, a school resource officer hired for our high school and to be able to transit between to the middle schools. And that takes a little extra budget.
Exactly. We have a question from Bill Robertson. Do you support the governor's executive order that took power away from mayors and councils in regards to the pandemic?
That's a tricky one, and the honest answer is somewhat. There's no clear way of saying yes or no on that. I'm not a fan whenever our state has acted to take away power from the local communities. And unfortunately, that happens a lot in Arizona. I'm not getting into the politics of it. It happens all across the nation. A lot of states think they have the right to tell the little communities in them that make up their population, make up their voters, what they can and cannot do, when the local communities, your city councils, your mayors have a better understanding what's on the ground. I think there should have been a better partnership on that, and to look at the hotspots and provide a more independent action. Now, with that said, people are very transitory. There has to be some uniformity, or else this pandemic was just going to drag on even more and be worse.
Different topic from Priscilla. So do you see youth substance abuse as an issue in Maricopa? Why or why not?
It's an issue everywhere. The police department, again, is doing a great job with youth outreach, and again, hiring a proper school resource officer to add to the one we already have to continue those communications. I've seen friends, I've seen people who have fallen into that world, and it's a hard one to get out of. And making sure that the city, one possible and one appropriate, is providing the assets to help these people pull out would be a wonderful thing. And there are programs that are available, and our city needs to have an understanding and compassion, because especially in hard times, that's when a lot of people, youths and adults, fall into these kinds of issues, and it's not who you would always expect.
In the past, we have had some stories about women giving birth on the road
Mhm.
out of town, trying to get
It's
to
a concern that my
us.
wife and I have.
So what will you do as a council member to make something happen there in that regard?
A lot of that also focuses on 347, which realistically, we're looking at about 5 to 7 years out before any major construction projects can start, whether it's just an overpass over Riggs, which will do an amazing amount to help our city, or a complete overhaul of the road, which again, would be phenomenal. And that's the city working in partnership with our neighbors and with our state. And fortunately, the city has forged a pretty good relationship with both, even one they may be adversaries with other people we have to work with. Now, we are reaching population levels that those hospitals, those major medical centers are looking for. And with luck, we get 347 moving, even if construction hasn't begun yet. If we can show as a city that there's a lot of progress, there's money being set aside, we can make the growth happen there. It takes a little while to build a hospital, and plenty of hospitals coming into Maricopa, and we're now large enough that hopefully it's not just some little HR center, or ER center, but rather a full-fledged facility.
Do you agree with how the city is spending its capital improvement budget?
Overall, yes. Again, that focuses on the smart growth for our infrastructure, that focuses on tying it into economic building. The capital that we have building our city is phenomenal. We need to be conservative in it. I don't want to see us go and blow our budgets unnecessarily, but we can't be afraid to spend where it's appropriate.
Are there any projects you think should be moved farther down?
Honestly, again, I have no fault with how the city has been running it, and I will definitely side with Rick on most things. He has been a phenomenal city manager, and him and his team have been doing a phenomenal job at prioritizing.
Is there any emphasis in the budget that you would like to see change?
Goes back to emergency services. I would like to see more funds opened up for future houses for the fire department, start targeting growth areas, but the police department, I want to see more manpower. I don't want to hear the stories about officers who are afraid to take a sick day because they know no one's available to cover them.
Another question. What specific youth programs do you see missing in Maricopa, and how would you as a council member help fill the gaps?
Good question. And that goes back to the substance abuse. The DARE program that was very popular during my childhood, I think it had great intent. I don't think it was ever handled right. It was a very old school approach to a problem. But I would love to see the city look into the possibility of helping fund with the MUSD and partnering with our charter schools, programs like that to help offer more awareness of what really is a substance abuse. As a kid, I'm not going to start listing options for any children that are watching, but there are a lot of things that I know a lot of my friends did that you wouldn't have sat and gone, oh yeah, that's substance abuse. And an awareness of that and the effects of it. Our kids today, well, there's a lot said about this current youth generation, and I don't think one of the things that is said nearly enough is how attuned they are to research and understanding facts. They live in a world where all the information in the world is literally right there in their hand. So all you need to do is point them in the direction, and a lot of times they'll be able to research and understand it better than any of us ever did. And we need to focus on that.
So you were in the Army.
Yes.
Are you involved with veteran organizations now?
No. I do offer my support when I see it for the Blue Star Mothers. I love that crew, and if you guys are watching, much love, and thank you so much for everything you guys do. But I'll get involved with them later down the road. It's just I have other priorities I'm focusing on.
Do you see ways that the city council itself could reach out more to the veteran residents that are here? There are quite a few of all ages.
I really do feel that the veterans overall have a strong voice on council. One of the people who's endorsing me, Henry Wade, is a veteran. I know that Julia is as well, I myself, but I'm not aware of any voice that has opposed any real action on the behalf of veterans. I am very happy to see that the library is going to be converted for partial permanent use by the veterans and partial permanent use for the seniors. And that was something that I really wanted to see the city do, because that old library that the veterans are currently using is an old building, and it's time for them to have better housing.
So with less gross receipt taxes coming into the city coffers because of the business closing during the pandemic, should the city delay major projects and hiring?
No. And the simple answer is the funds will come back. The city to grow considerably, and I would quite imagine that after all the limits are lifted, we'll see a small boom in the economy. To go out to eat again, jumping to go shopping at their favorite little shops. But ultimately, the city does have funds in reserve that we can utilize and repay at a little. And it's operating conservatively, but not being afraid to spend. And if we are worried about hitting what we need to do now because of the cost, it's going to cost us far more next year or the year after that.
So you're pretty confident that
I'm very confident. The economy always recovers, and Maricopa is the poster child of economic recovery.
Okay, you ran for constable before.
Yes.
What did you learn from that experience?
Well, I learned that when you're honest with people and you're open to dialogue, even if it's the realm of what you would expect to be discussing for a different candidacy. If you talk with people, you don't have to always meet eye to eye, and you don't have to agree with people, but people will find the desire to support you. And although I did lose, I lost by that much. And that actually says a lot, because it was a partisan race, and to come that close means that I had to have been able to cross the divide. And that's the big thing. That's especially here, City Council, it is nonpartisan. This is not about the national politics. This is not about the state politics. Frankly, they can all go blow smoke, which a lot of them do on both sides. I'm focused here on Maricopa, and I want to see every opportunity for Maricopa to grow and represent everyone here.
Be Awesome wants to know if you'd be willing to help the Be Awesome Youth Coalition with their mission.
I would love to, and I get your emails. I do read through them, and I'm sorry I haven't had the opportunity to attend one of your functions and really start working with you, but I'm very aware of you guys, and trust me, you are on my radar.
We have a question from a reader who wants to know if you support Donald Trump.
Well, I support some of the things he does. I don't support some of the things he does. Is that a fair enough answer?
Let's see. So, someone's concerned about some of your ideas might be spending money the city doesn't have.
Again, this goes back to fiscal responsibility and conservative spending. I am not looking to spend every dime we have and then keep borrowing to keep going. I've seen cities do that. It's the wrong thing to do. We can't print money. We don't have the ability to just open up the national treasury and give. everything we do has to be to the dollars we have. Now, again, we do have a strong cash flow. As a small city, we are relatively flush, which is great because that, again, goes to smart conservative spending. I am not for just blow it all, but there are opportunities that are worth investing in, and I don't want to be afraid of those.
We've heard from some of the financial experts that we still haven't quite felt the impact that this is going to have, even though we've been shut down for more than a month. Are you afraid of that? How do you plan for that? Do you think the city is still in a good situation?
Yes. The city has been squirreling away money for the rainy days. And a lot of that is meant to help support the city in the future when we've reached a point where we can no longer grow physically. But like a 401k, you can borrow against it if you need, if that's what's absolutely important. If you're, as a realtor, I'm going to say, if you're looking to buy a house and you need a down payment, borrowing from your 401k is not a bad thing to do, so long as your financial advisor, your lender, says that's okay. Just make sure you talk with your lender, folks. Sorry, I have to plug that because I don't want people to misconstrue that. But you can borrow from your assets and pay yourself back when you know growth is coming. That way you don't miss a mortgage payment, or you have the opportunity when the opportunity is available, because to buy the quality now versus the clearance later, buy the quality now.
Last question. Why do you deserve to be on council?
I don't think anyone deserves to be on the council. That is something that others have to decide for us. I focused my life on serving the communities I've lived in. I'm a third generation Eagle Scout. Community service is strong with me. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I volunteered at the local homeless shelter. I did canned food drives, did a lot of different community service projects because I felt a need to do that. I joined the Army during the worst time during the Iraq-Afghanistan conflicts. And I have someone that was close to me in basic that never got to come home. But I still felt the need to serve. I have always been focused on that, and I've always wanted to find a place where I can properly serve my community. I believe my experience from working side by side with law enforcement, being a veteran, being a small business owner in this wonderful community, being a participant in the activities here in the community, working to help find the opportunities for everyone here may be enough for others to decide that I am worth being on council. But if anyone ever tells you they are worth being on council, if they deserve it, I guess I'm not willing to say that.
And the best way to get people to start asking questions is to say this is the last question. So another one is that how does your time as a vet help you serve under pressure?
That's the entirety of being a vet, is serving under pressure with long periods of standing around going, what's next?
Okay. Bill, again, it says paying penalties and interest to use your own money is dumb. Only a real estate commission salesperson would say it is smart. So what is your answer to that?
You're paying yourself back those penalties. I'd rather pay myself an interest than a bank.
Okay, the rest of these are... Will you be voting for Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
I haven't decided who I'm voting for president yet. I'm still researching and seeing where they come on the positions that matter most to me.
How does your opinion of what's going on nationally, how does that feed into what your decision-making is at the local level?
It doesn't. Okay. What's happening nationally is what's happening nationally. one bit of advice my father always gave me is the most important elections you can ever pay attention to are local. What happens in DC, even what happens in your state capital, is not going to affect you nearly as much as the person who lives 3 doors down from you representing you as the city. It is so important to pay attention to these elections. I don't want to discourage people from paying attention to the other elections. They are very important. But I'm focused on the city right now, not what egos are doing in DC.
And it's been an issue in the past as far as open carry or even hidden carry of guns and things like that. How do you feel about that in public buildings? People being able to bring their weapons in?
I am so torn on this. I've been shooting since I was 13. I own firearms. That was a question I received a lot when I was running for constable. Firearms, Second Amendment, which I would always start with, you realize constables have no say in that. But at City Council, we do have some say. And that decision's already been made. I conceal carry. My wife conceals and carries. We both have our licenses. We've both gone through extra training courses because I believe if you're going to own a firearm, you should probably know how to use it. With that said, in City Council chambers, I really don't feel that it's necessary or appropriate, or in City Hall in general. But again, that decision's already been reviewed, and before I make any decisions on anything, I want to talk to the experts. I don't go by gut. I go by facts. If that ever came back up as a decision for City Council, I'd be sitting down with Chief Stahl and asking his experience, what he sees, what the facts are, what the risk level are. I would talk to our city attorneys. What are the legal issues here? What are the constitutional issues here? Because it's not about partisan views one way or another. It is about what is appropriate and legal.
And we have some people asking background questions. They want to know what your level of education is, and can you expand on your military service?
So my military service was cut short by a training accident that resulted in a knee injury that now has me listed as a disabled vet receiving benefits. That knee injury is what also led to me not pursuing the career in public law enforcement that I had hoped for. So it was briefer than I had hoped. And while I was in, I was a 19-kilo tank crewman. My hope as a child and a teenager was I wanted to drive the most, I have to rephrase what I was just thinking because it's a public forum, the toughest land vehicle known to man, and that is the M1 Abrams. And I did, and I had a blast doing it. Took to it like white on rice.
Did you go into the military straight out of high school?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. So, that's another question. So, okay. Okay. Someone did want to know your opinion on I-11, Interstate 11, going through Hidden Valley, if you had a stand on that.
I do have a stand on that, and that actually goes back to talking to people. I've talked to people who live out in Hidden Valley who they themselves are not directly impacted, but they have friends that may lose their property to being seized for this I-11 corridor. I'm a big fan of the I-11 corridor. I don't think it needs to go through the proposed route. I want to say it was the orange route, which just moves it a little further down. Will still greatly benefit Maricopa without wiping out people's property. And as a side note, I would encourage anyone who is looking to, because this is going to be a county and state level issue, the city of Maricopa will have some input, but focus on your state representatives. See if you can get Nissan on your side on that, because the proposed route goes right past their test facilities, and most car manufacturers don't want that kind of attention on their test facilities. Just saying.
Great. And again, so how long were you in the military?
I was in for under 6 months. I was injured during one of the training exercises.
Okay, and is there anything else you want to add about what some of the topics coming up that you know you'll be questioned about?
I want to be a bridge for all members of society in this community. We have strong voices for our seniors. We have strong voices for our veterans. We have strong voices for families. I want to be a strong voice for everyone. I'm not looking to peg myself as a voice for one group or another. If you ever have questions or concerns, I want to be the person you feel comfortable coming to, calling up, running into at the grocery store and pegging me for an hour to just talk about what's of interest to you. I've had the pleasure of sitting down with our senior groups in this community and hearing what their concerns are. I've had the pleasure of talking with our veterans and hearing what their concerns are, our law enforcement, our first responders. And as a family man, I see what's coming up with them. I've sat down with Maricopa Unified School District Superintendent and discussed what they are looking at and how better to partnership with them. I'm honored to have the endorsements of Marvin Brown, who's going to be stepping down to take his seat when he retires. I'm honored to have the endorsement of Henry Wade, current city council member. And I'm also honored to have Peggy Chapados's support for as a former city council person. I absolutely want to be the voice, and these people believe that I can do that for the city, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raquel. I appreciate it. This was fun.